despite the fact that just recently Putin was at the Valdai Forum and in China, where he demonstrated a brilliant physical form. Western journalists have recognized signs of a serious illness. In particular, the British tabloids Daily Mail and The Sun wrote about it. What is the truth here? The source of the statement about Putin's serious illness was a Telegram channel called General SVR, the author of which is a political scientist, historian, and former head of the Department of Advertising and Public Relations at Moscow State Institute of International Relations Valery Solovey. Of course, Solovey is no SVR general, but it was the channel with this name that most often published posts with detailed analyses of Putin's health, in particular, that the president suffers from oncology and Parkinson's disease. From the point of view of the author of the channel, it is with this that the amendments to the Constitution of the Russian Federation in 2020 are connected, and the whole carnival with the urgent introduction of amendments, with the replacement of the entire cabinet and so on. This is a consequence of the preparation of the tactician, so the channel calls Vladimir Putin, for the operation and the transition period. Let's call it the period of pre-life. The Telegram channel wrote, the fact that none of the SVR general's political predictions have come true does not embarrass the Western media, and they regularly broadcast the statements of the Kremlin insider. It is possible that they themselves dictate them to Solovey, and at the beginning of the special operation, investigators from the online publication project awarded Putin with thyroid cancer and even launched a specific flash mob. Conspiracy-minded citizens posted hundreds of photos of Putin's neck, proving that it showed the scar from the operation. So that's where the constant coughing comes from, the detractors wrote on Twitter. According to the journalists of Project, they had at their disposal lists of doctors who visited the president. The most frequent visitors to the Kremlin Medical Center were a lorist and an oncologist surgeon who specializes in thyroid diseases. Peskov had to challenge the sensation. By the way, it is interesting that Project launched its duck on the 1st of April apparently, just in case. If all the diagnoses made to the Russian president over the past 20 years had any relation to reality, Russia would have a different president. In addition to thyroid cancer and heart failure, investigators like Soloviev have found spinal problems, Parkinson's disease, and even leprosy. Professor Igor Gundarov, a 76-year-old Moscow epidemiologist, has been talking about the president's biblical disease since the 2000s. According to Gundarov, Putin was infected with leprosy by former Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko, but enemies hope in vain. Putin will catch a cold at your wake. According to Kremlin medics, who do not eat their bread in vain, the condition of the body of the chief, as the president is called in the Kremlin, is much better than it is supposed to be by age. Incidentally, the thick clinical delirium formed around Putin by the Western press also includes tales about the Russian president's numerous doppelgangers. The other day Peskov had to talk about this as well. He can tell you that there are no doppelgangers. This belongs to the category of absurd information ducks, which a number of media outlets discuss with enviable persistence. It causes nothing but a smile. It doesn't matter what Peskov says. If British publications are to be believed, Vladimir Putin has an army of doppelgangers. Some conspiracy theorists like Yulia Latinina are even able to somehow distinguish them by their ears. Belief in this madness is cultivated by the American and European media no less than belief in fatal diagnoses of an inconvenient president. For example, in 2015, the seemingly serious German newspaper Die Welt published a sensational article allegedly on behalf of the president's ex-wife Vladimira Putina. In her confession, the ex-First Lady of Russia admits that her husband has long been dead, and his doppelgangers, triplets, and so on are traveling around the motherland. That's why they were preparing a double for me as well, so that when I said something not as planned according to the script, I could make up for the embarrassment. If they had time to bring my double to a more or less successful resemblance, I would have been killed long ago. The publication quotes pseudo-Vladimira Putina. By the way, in order to get into the fashionable Western agenda around abusive behavior and domestic violence, pseudo-Vladimira Putina told the newspaper that her husband was a tyrant in his family life. By the way, the already familiar general of the SV has also mastered the topic of doppelgangers. On the 25th of October, he wrote in his channel, as if one of them was present at a closed event in the Kremlin, Russian President Vladimir Putin is no longer able to run the country, and the doppelganger as the person who will now universally represent the president is gradually replacing the head of state at closed events as well. Consultations continued yesterday between representatives of the elite groups that are trying to unite to hold on to Putin's system of power after the death of Putin himself. So what? All these strange statements and rumors are being sown for one purpose: to further confuse the head of that part of society, which is already glad to be deceived, as Pushkin wrote, because no one in his right mind will seriously read the insides of the SVR general, or distinguish Putin's doppelgangers by their ears, but someone will, and this part of society, already warmed up in the information microwave, can be used somehow if they wish, at a strictly defined moment, in a strictly defined way. Well, Putin, as his recent interviews and speeches have shown, is healthy and alert, perhaps because he does not read British newspapers and paranoid telegram channels at lunch.